Welcome to another episode of Skid's Garage. Today we go for a drive. We do up some bolts and we replace a power steering rack.
There we go. So we're on my way to Capalaba to look at a power steering rack. I found a guy who's got one for sale. He only wants $60 for it and reckons it's in perfect condition, so we'll go check it out. I guess after looking at how bad mine was, I definitely need a new one, so safe to say that the stop leak absolutely didn't work. I was actually looking at getting mine reconditioned, but after ringing around a few places and seeing the price, it's about $360. I then went to Petters to see how much to get a new one, and after trying to contact them a few times, no one wanted to reply to me, so I guess they don't get my business. But I thought, I'll take a gamble on this one, and we'll see how it goes. He reckons it's got all the boots on it and it's in complete condition. Came out of a car with about 50,000 Ks that had a hit up the bum, so reckons it's in pretty good nick. I was just on Facebook and someone actually put up a wanted to buy for a power steering rack, and this guy replied, messaging him to see if it was still available. I don't know, is that called snaking or anything? So I managed to score this power steering rack off some guy that was parting an S13, and it's in pretty excellent condition. Main things I'm excited about: the boots are intact, which means there's no chance of having any crap that have gone in there, which is great. Both boots are in good condition. The other thing is, you can see it is quite clean. So he said it was out of a low-K car, and I'm very inclined to believe him. It is a high-cast rack, which is great. I have a high-cast rack in there at the moment, and the good thing about them, they've got a better ratio, so they're a bit quicker for steering. So all I need to do to prep this to put in the car is basically just pull the tow rods off, pull my rack out, put my lock spacers in, then this rack can go back in the car. The other benefit of getting a complete unit is I've got spare tie rods and rack ends as well. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is remove these two lines here. As you can see, they when they were pulled out of the car, you just cut the lines on both ends. First step is we need to remove the tie rod end from the tie rod. So there's a little locking nut. Loosen the nut from the tie rod end. There's just a bit of square edge here so that you can get some purchase on to remove the nut. Now the nut's a 19mm, but we'll just use a big shifter for the end here. The boot, so get some scissors. Now you can see that there's these locking tabs. So basically what we need to do, use a screwdriver or pliers or something, lift these locking tabs up, and then we can then get a big shifter and undo the tie rod. So because we'll be putting rack spacers in, don't need the these little clips. So there we have it. The rack ends are off, rack boots, tie rods, tie rod ends, and now what we can do is just pull the rack out of the car and put the rack spacers in and then put it back together. So I've just realised that I don't have a ball joint separator tool, so let's go get one. So as you can see, still leaking power steering fluid out of the busted rack. Do have new ball joint separator tool, so we can remove the tie rod ends. Basically, how we do that is we remove the cotter pin from the castle nut. We loosen the castle nut so it's on by a couple of threads. Put the tool in there and wind her out. So you don't want to remove the nut completely, you just sort of want to leave a couple of threads on there, so that way it'll stop the knuckle from bouncing up and causing an injury. The way this works is the bottom slides in between the ball joint. You've got this bolt on the bottom which pushes up on the lever here, which then pushes the ball joint through the knuckle. So it's just a case of just tightening this and away you go.
Let's see it again in super slow motion.
And just like that. Okay, so we want to undo the two lines here that go to the pump, and then from there we leave these two in because they go to the rack. Undo the bolt there, and then there's another one in the front here somewhere, and then up this way there somewhere there's two bolts that hold the steering column. So let's get these ones off first. Alright, so I've got some light, so you can see the two lines we removed before, just there and there. Got them out of the way, just dripping into a bucket. Now I think we just need to remove the bolt here, and then when we remove the rack it should just all pull out together. Okay, so now we just need to remove both bolts on this side. Okay, so you want to remove the steering knuckle from the shaft here. Do that first because then that lets you move the steering rack around. Don't have any video of that. Sorry, the batteries just died before, so got it on a quick charge. But basically, once that's out, you can just sort of maneuver the rack. So So now that the old rack's out, you can see that like all the bushes are pretty fucked. You know, definitely seen better days. A lot of gunk in there that's just been going in and out of the rack, which is probably stuff to seal. So if there's anything to learn from this, it's run your rack boots, boys. I also got some solid rack bushes from GK Tech to go in. So basically they just replaced the rubber bushes with aluminium inserts, so it gives it a bit more positive fit. Okay, so we've got the old power steering rack in the vise. Basically just like how we did with the old rack, just remove both tie rod ends from the rack. So here we go, we've got tie rod with the rack spacer. Isn't it weird that these little spacers give you so much lock? So we'll get these cleaned up in a moment and get them ready to go in the new rack. So it's probably good to put a bit of thread locker on these threads, because the stock tie rods had that collar. So now we just need to do basically the opposite of everything we've done before. Put the rack back in, bolt everything all up, and we should be good to go. So let's get to it. Now that the new power steering rack's in, the last thing we're going to do is put a power steering cooler on. So these aren't 100% necessary. While I've got it all apart, I'll pop a cooler in there as well. If you were building, say, a Commodore drift car, they're 100% important. The amount of pumps I've blown in this car, and then put a cooler in it, and no problem blowing power steering pumps. But yeah, so picked this one up off eBay. It's a bit bigger than what I thought it would be. It's got two barbs on the end there. Basically the idea is to have this mounted in the front somewhere. I've been playing around with a few ideas, and probably looks like I'm gonna fit it down in between the oil cooler radiator and intercooler, so that'll just bolt in there and nice and out of the way. So let's get to it. So I've just put a riv nut on each side, and what this basically does is puts a thread into the bracket here, and then that way a normal bolt can go into there, and that'll hold it nice and tight. So we're just going to do the same on the second side, and then mark out some holes in the car and mount it up. So now to plumb the power steering cooler in, normally you have, this is the power steering return line, which goes to the bottom of the reservoir. Now that normally goes down to the hard line just there, and then that runs back to the rack. So what we're going to do is we're basically going to put the power steering cooler in between this return just here and where it would normally go back to the pump. So we're just going to run some power steering hose down to the front, which as I've already done here. We're going to cut it to length, pop it on there, another bit to go on there, and then that's just going to run back up and up to the return. So let's get to it. So now we've got both ends on here, we just run the return line back to the res. Now that that's done, it's a simple case of just topping up your fluid, and then you've got to bleed the air out of the system. So the easiest way to do that is just start the car up, spin the steering wheel side to side, and keep making sure there's fluid in there, and do that for about maybe 5 or so minutes, and that'll bleed all the air out of the system, make sure there's no leaks, and we'll be good to go. So let's get on to that. So we've checked all the fittings for leaks. You just want to go over all your hose clamps. Just remember the 2 on the cooler as well. You got 2 on the reservoir, 1 on the hard line down there. Then you want to check your 2 screw-in fittings on your rack. Check your rack boots. All the air's bled out and there's no leaks. So we're on a winner, which is awesome. Thanks for tuning in to another episode. It was awesome to get the power steering rack finally in, bled, sorted. Sorry, it was a long episode, but it did take a bit of work, and wanted to make sure we documented it properly. And no help to this one. But anyway, we'll see you next time. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. And also, if there's any mods you'd like to see, or if there's anything you'd like me to cover, feel free to drop a comment, see if I can cover it off or get onto it. You know, whether it's something involving this guy here, or that guy, or even if you want to see more mechanic dog, then we can get onto it. So we'll catch you next time. Bye.
Ah, for fuck's sakes.
Don't you love when you drop your sockets in the fucking oil pan?